Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. I'm your host Gary, and of course joining me today is Iain, and of course our guest today is Hannah. And today we're going to talk about the 1987 movie The Lost Boys by director Joel Schumacher. Joel Schumacher's kind of got a rough history of films. He produced some pretty bad movies like Batman and Robin. But back in the later day, he made some pretty good movies. And The Lost Boys, for me, growing up, it was my first foray into vampires. The vampire horror subgenre, which I'd only ever really saw with maybe Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
But The Lost Boys made it cool. Can you explain the story of Lost Boys, Iain?
Well, we follow the story of Jason Patric and Corey Haim, who play two brothers who have just moved to Santa Carla in California. They've moved in with their grandfather, and they are trying to work their way into the cliques that are around the theme park, in which lies in Santa Carla. But then they come across a group of vampires led by Kiefer Sutherland, and the vampire hunters led by Corey Feldman.
The Frog Brothers.
The Frog Brothers.
Who are actually running a comic book store.
Yeah, the coolest comic book store.
Got a problem, guys? Just scoping your civilian wardrobe. Pretty cool, huh? For a fashion victim.
Basically, David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, lures Michael into his group and starts to change him into a vampire. And it's kind of a love story, but then at the same time the battle between good and evil with Michael not wanting to be a killer.
You are a killer.
But at the same time being kind of excited by the prospect of sleeping all day, going out at night, living forever.
Yeah. So the film is him basically undergoing an initiation into the Lost Boys, if you will, into this vampire clique, which are, as you said, it's I've forgotten his name. Kiefer Sutherland is running this group of vampires, and they're kind of like 80s rock stars.
I think Twisted Sister in leather jackets, and you've pretty much got it actually. Yeah, long hair, and they've got the leather clad jeans, the denim. Pretty much, yeah.
The bikes, they're the cool kids. But then when you see them change, they're fucking vicious.
Got all of those guys that are having like a beach party, and they've got the bonfire.
Yeah.
And that is I'd say is probably the most horrific scene in the film, where you see them turn into vampires, and they are just eating these people, draining the blood and chucking the bodies onto the fire. It's actually quite dark, considering the rest of the film is quite light-hearted and very goofy.
You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
Yeah. I've got this one specific memory of that scene that we're talking about, where there's a bald man that gets bitten on the head.
Yeah.
And they rip the skin back off his head. And I watched this film first when I was 10 years old, and had a couple nightmares after that. I think, fair to say.
It builds up to that. I mean, the first time you see the vampires in action, people are just being picked up and carried off, which for me was quite scary when I was little watching this, because you don't actually realise how strong these vampires are. They're just picking people up and then taking them off, and you're like, they've just killed them. But then you see how vicious they can be, with the arms being pulled off and bodies being chucked onto fires.
They tease you with it, don't they, at first? They tease you with lots of vampire killings, but you don't actually see the killing part until that bonfire scene.
Yeah.
So we see the security guard at the beginning, who's just kind of crossed them because they were on the boardwalk, and he holds Kiefer Sutherland's character David with his truncheon across his neck, and you see the rest of them looking like, uh-oh. And then you see him walking to his car, and you hear that, there's a particular sound that's associated with that.
It's like a flutter of wings.
And not a gentle flutter though, it's a really sinister type flutter, isn't it? And you just see him being picked up as he runs to his car.
Yeah.
And you see the same thing again with the couple that he encounters on the boardwalk in their car, and their car is being ripped off and then lifted up and kind of taken out. But you never actually see them until that scene.
It is like a bat. You think it's like a vampire bat sound that
it's hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. Yeah.
See, I love Corey Feldman and Corey Haim are massive 80s stars at this point, and to see them working individually, I mean, the films that they did up to this point, they'd worked together, and you could see
Yeah.
the brotherly love that they kind of had. But then watching them individually, you have Sam, who walks into the comic book store and he's just telling them how to run the store. You don't put this comic with that comic, and you definitely don't have this one. And then they hand him the vampire comic, and they're just like,
I don't like horror comics. You like this one, Mr. Phoenix. Well, it could save your life.
read this. And he's
I
like,
don't read horror comics.
I don't read horror comics, but at the
It's a
same
survival
time,
manual.
yeah, this film is saturated with 80s nostalgia. I mean, the clothes that
it
Sam
is.
wears, the colourful jackets, the way their hair
Yeah.
is all hairsprayed up, and just there's one scene where Sam's in bed reading this comic book, and he's got this giant plastic watch on the wall
Oh, the
as
memories.
his clock. And I'm watching this film, and I'm just like, who the fuck owned that? Why the fuck would you own that?
I just like how his granddad keeps scaring him with these animals that he's
Taxidermy,
killing. Yeah,
yeah.
the taxidermy monster creature. Well, they look like creatures because they look so horrific when he scares them with him. But what I really like about The Lost Boys is the fact that it is still a contemporary film that deals with this old-fashioned lore of vampires.
Yeah.
With the can't go out in daylight, drinking blood, being decapitated, can't be invited into your house. Don't like garlic, don't like
Yeah.
crosses, don't like holy water. Like all of the mythology of
Yeah.
vampires, they've kept it really integral with this film and played upon it quite well.
So for me, when I first watched it, I never knew about that rule. Inviting a vampire into your home makes you powerless. And I was just like, wow, I've got to remember that one
Just in case it
happens.
just in case that happens. And it builds up the other characters as well. I mean, the mum and Max and the granddad, they're all in the background, but you kind of want them to be involved. You want to tell them what's going on, but are they really going to believe you? It's
She
vampires.
doesn't, does she? Well, when Sam finally does tell her, she thinks he's been reading too many comic books.
Yeah.
That's set up quite nicely earlier on. But the thing with the vampire lore for me was that the garlic doesn't work in this film. I remember that iconic scene at the end with the blonde vampire, I've forgotten his name. But he goes, garlic don't work, boys. And he goes, try holy water, death breath.
Please try holy water, death breath!
And it's that scene, and I thought, really? I thought garlic was one of the things that's supposed to pretty much kill a vampire, but it doesn't. So they do challenge it in that way as well,
Yeah.
which is really good.
I think vampires just don't like garlic.
No, they just don't like it.
What I also really like about the film is the transformation, the slow progression, where Michael has undergone the rituals pretty much. He hasn't made his first kill yet, so in order to become a full vampire, he has to make a kill. And a lot of the film kind of hinges on the fact as to Willie, and will he perhaps even kill his brother?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I love the scenes where he is slowly becoming a vampire and he's sleeping in later and he's growing his nails longer, wearing the sunglasses, still being very cool and having a very Jim Morrison kind of vibe coming from him.
Definitely, yeah.
But I love the scene where he's in his bedroom and he just starts floating off his bed and he's clambering up the walls and he's holding on by the telephone outside. Like,
What are you, the flying nun?
And Sam's on the phone like, ah! Yeah, he's outside the window just seeing legs. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's
scene.
so funny, but it's so well played.
See, as a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well, watching this recently, I kind of got the feeling that Santa Carla was just on the outside of Sunnydale. mainly because when you do see Kiefer Sutherland and the rest of the vampires change, I noticed that they change a lot like the vampires in Buffy. Their forehead changes, their eyes change, they get these fangs. They become they're not human anymore. They are vicious monsters,
They're
vicious
scary,
killers. And I was just like, these are vicious vampires,
They are, definitely.
And they have a really cool coffin as well, which is just one big crypt
Oh.
under the town.
Not bad, huh? This was the hottest resort in Santa Carla about 85 years ago.
This is the coolest hangout ever in the whole history of the world. And it was a hotel, wasn't it, originally? A really kind of like 5-star hotel. And because it's in Santa Carla, and there's this big earthquake, and it literally just fell into the gap, and that's where they hang out. And it's kind of a cross between gothic interior design and like Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video mashed into one. You think that must be an awesome place to hang out.
I do love that little scene where David is tricking Michael with the food.
How are those maggots?
Maggots, Michael.
You're eating maggots. How do they taste?
And then you see him all wriggling, and he's just like, are
As
they
a kid, you
maggots?
go,
Is he playing on it? Yeah, noodle. And for me, if that was me, I'd have been like, I'm gone. See you later.
But Kiefer Sutherland's expression when he goes,
They're only noodles, Michael.
really patronising. At this point, I would have punched him in the face for doing that to me. Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland is just. It's just so phenomenal in this film. I mean, obviously he's gone on to become a better actor and done, 24 and Phone Booth and all these other films. But just seeing him there, he just looks so cool with the earrings and the jacket, and he's just the leader.
I
And
think the word you're looking for is hot. Actually,
Well,
sorry,
I'm not going to go for hot.
For us females, I mean, watching him in that first guy crush ever, Kiefer Sutherland in that David, he comes along with, it's kind of like
Would you let
an
it bite
early
you?
version of Spike in Buffy. He's
yeah.
got the longer hair.
He's got a
got
terrible
long coat.
mullet, but he pulls it off.
He pulls it off amazingly well, and he just looks. He's got this look about. Even when he's a vampire, you think, actually, he's still hot. It never happens normally, but with
makes
Lost Boys, it does.
It makes you wonder what everyone sees in all these Twilight twerps that are running around.
Here we go. I was waiting for
Going
this.
on
I was
Twilight.
waiting for this. Okay, I happen to. Here we go. Shoot myself in the face. I happen to like Twilight, but because I think it's aimed at a different audience. That's the romantic, girly side of things. But saying that I do prefer vampires that don't sparkle, so that's why Lost Boys will always win out over Twilight for me.
See now at the same time, Lost Boys came out, and at the same time, Near Dark came out, which is another vampire film. And Near Dark was forced into obscurity mainly because of the success of
Yes.
Lost Boys. But I actually feel that Near Dark was trying to be more dark and more gritty than what the Lost Boys comes across as.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, talking about Twilight, with Near Dark, they were trying new things, and the same thing with Lost Boys. They were using the old rules that we already knew about vampires. They were just bringing it to modern day.
Yeah.
Luckily, they don't fucking sparkle because I would just absolutely fucking hate the
They
film.
catch fire though. That was awesome. That
They
David Tennant.
explode.
Yeah, it's the fight
Yes,
sequence
by
at
stereo.
the end is just. The one thing I did want to talk about is the music.
Oh,
The music for this film, Cry Little Sister, if you've seen the film you know what I'm talking about, but Cry Little Sister is like the theme tune for this film. And at the same time, Echo and the Bunnymen's cover of The Doors,
strange.
When People Are Strange, it just sets the film up. They're driving into Santa Carla and you're seeing all the strange people walking around Santa Carla. And it just makes you just feel quite happy. Shit's going to go down, but it
really
feels quite
sets
happy.
the tone for the film.
It does
The
perfectly.
bike sequence as well with Say Hello to the Night when they're just driving along and they're bombing to the cliff
the
edge. It just
shadows, yeah.
get your heart pumping and you're just like, yeah, I want to be on the bike, I want to be with them.
Iconic scene as well when they first come to Santa Carla and we first see Star, and there's
Yeah.
that iconic scene. We've got Tim Capello, who's one of the lead saxophone
The
players, Tina
topless
Turner.
saxophone player.
He's greased up. He looks like kind of a 1980s wrestler now if you look back at it, but he was amazing, and that music's amazing, and it's that song I Still Believe.
Yeah.
And that soundtrack.
I can't help but enjoy that scene. I hate the guy,
Amazing.
but I do love the
don't.
scene. It just builds up to the scene because obviously Michael is distracted by Star, and Star is the one who leads him off. But little
Yeah.
to Michael's knowledge is that she's already been turned and he's supposed to be her first kill.
Yeah.
But obviously the love interest happens and he decides that he's going to help her, which leads us to the big fight sequence at the end. Oh,
Yeah, the climax to
Yes.
this film where all of the vampires are attacking their house,
Yeah.
and they're all breaking in. Some are coming in through the fireplace, some are coming in through the door, some are just already in the house. And there are some quite tense moments in there, but a lot of the vampire kills are played to gory laughs.
yeah.
It is quite funny.
You miss, sucker.
Once, pal. Death by stereo.
So, what was your favourite scene, Hannah, of the whole film?
My favourite scene is the scene that caused this retaliation by the vampires at the end. So you've got a bit of comic relief. You've got Edgar and Alan Frog leading Sam, and they take the Nook as well, I think, with them down, and Michael down in to retrieve Star.
Yeah.
But of course the agenda that the Frog Brothers have is they just want to kill all vampires, basically. They just want to, they say use of justice the American way, and they go down there, and you've got the vampires holy shit, you
Just
know, they're
hanging
upside
from the
down.
ceiling.
You see their clawed feet, and then they go up next to Marco, of course, who's like he's in Bill and Ted later.
Yeah,
but
Alex
it's his
Winter,
first.
yeah.
We see him hang up, they pick on the little one first, a bit unfair. But, you know, and they stab him through the stake, and that is one of the goriest scenes I've ever seen, but it was amazing, and you get this sense of panic when the rest of them wake up.
Good night, bloodsucker.
No!
Yeah.
And he's there on the floor fizzing, and there's blood everywhere. And he's like, "You're dead meat!" And they have to get out then, of course, really quickly before David catches them. And that's when you see him
Burn
grab
his hand.
Sam's leg.
Yeah.
And the Frog Brothers are like covered in mush. They get outside, get in the car straight away, and then there's Star asleep. And Laddie as well, of course. A little boy that was kind of half vampire still.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's retaliation afterwards. But that cave scene, if I had to pick a favourite scene, which is really hard because I love this film, it would be that scene, I think.
Nice.
Definitely.
I think my favourite scene is it's part of the initiation sequence where they've finished the bike ride and now they're on the railroad.
Yeah.
And it's really misty and foggy, and they just start jumping off, seemingly suicidal. And then you realise that they're all hanging from the bottom of the bridge as the train's going over and it's all shaking, and they just start letting go one after another. And it's just visually quite intoxicating as well, just, you know, the feeling of it.
Yeah.
It's the euphoria of slowly becoming a vampire. And the film kind of gave you that wonder of romanticising the vampire as well, to you actually wanting to become one.
Yeah.
And if not, maybe not that, then maybe you wanted to, you know, have the Frog Brothers as your best friends and go and kill vampires. So whichever way you go down, the film works. So.
See, my favourite scene is right at the end. It's the scene where the grandfather has turned up and the whole house has been destroyed. Everybody's they're all mucky. They're all scared. They're just like, you know, we're finally finished. Yeah. And the grandfather just walks right in, goes straight to the fridge, and his daughter says to him, "Is everything all right?" And he pulls out the drink and he just goes,
"One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires."
And the shock on all of their faces. And I just sit there and I'm like, "You bastard. You knew the whole time, but you didn't say a single thing."
It's brilliant. Brilliant scene.
I really recommend Lost Boys. If you haven't seen it yet, you really should owe it to yourself to watch it. It is a pure classic film from the 80s. It captures all the best elements of 80s rock, glam.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenal film. It's really funny, very witty. The action scenes are very well played out, and it's everything that you could ever want in a vampire film. And I will also just say, avoid the sequels. I think there's two already, and I think there might even be another one. Just avoid them.
I definitely recommend this film. If you've never seen it, but you've seen Twilight, obviously, and John Carpenter's Vampires, and you're just looking for a really cool horror comedy to watch, Lost Boys is just up there. You know, the 80s stuff. If you weren't born then, you might not get it, but it's just colourful. It's musically really well done, and it just builds up, and then the gory scenes, and then death by stare. Oh, it's just absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that whether you are a fan of general vampire films or not, this is the creme de la creme of vampire films. So you have to watch it. If you're with somebody, especially if you're going to like take someone out on a date, get them home, get them to watch Lost Boys. There's nothing that I don't like about this film. And the soundtrack is amazing. The comic relief of the Frog Brothers, the cool edgy vampires. It's just it's for everyone.
You want to be a vampire, don't you?
I totally want to be a vampire. I mean, keep yourself looking white meat any day.
This is a sexy, stylish, entertaining film. So, thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
When you're unwanted, streets are running. When you're down, when you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers your name.
Open up! Stay back! Stay back!
Sammy, help me! Open up! Help me! Sammy, open the window!
Never! I knew it!
I am not!
So where are you? The fly